Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. Now then, due to the effects of the weather, this year's elderflower harvest has come a little later than normal. This week marks the real start of the harvest, with elderflowers finally exploding, which means it's time for Ian Cummings to start coming up with some marvellous creations in the kitchen, and of course for us to think about the bees, which are the backbone of humanity from what I understand. We wouldn't be here without them. They play an important part, so to find out more, both from the cooking with the Great British Bake Off's Ian Cumming and with the Beekeepers Association, Jane Moseley. How are you both?
Very well, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Good. Let's talk about firstly why we're on then. The bees are really important. That's it, fact. Is that the case, Jane?
The bees are, I couldn't agree with you more. It is bang on. They are vital to the food that we eat, to the wildlife that rely on the berries and the seeds and the nuts on which to feed them. So, yeah, bees are vitally important to all of us.
When we look at our existence, why are they so important then? Why are they the backbone of everything?
Well, if you think about, this is the summer, so we'll be talking about strawberries, we'll be looking at lovely raspberries, if we want carrots, if we want any of these foods that we eat and we rely on, they produce seed. And the way that they produce seed is either through a fruit or through the flower to becoming a nut once it's fertilised. And that is the way that they procreate. They disperse their seeds. So a strawberry is packed full of little seeds. When a bird or a mouse or whoever eats that seed, it then disperses the seed so the plant can procreate and we can just go through the whole cycle again. If we don't have the pollination, we don't end up with the fruits, which means that we don't ultimately end up with new plants. There are wind-pollinated plants and a lot of trees are wind-pollinated, but a lot of them rely on pollination. And without that pollination, they can't survive. So if you don't have your trees, you don't have the carbon removed from the atmosphere and going back into the tree, which then goes back into the ground. They don't produce the leaves, which then fall to the ground and then get taken in by the worms to enrich the soil. And it's the same with the petals from the flowers. Once they've been fertilised and they fall away, they go into the soil and they re-nourish the soil. And if you don't have the bees doing that pollination, it has an impact on the whole cycle of our natural world. So they are vital. We do take them for granted, and there are 240 different types of bee in this country. The bumblebees, the solitary bees, and of course the honeybees. And the honeybees are, if we plant for honeybees, we're supporting everything else because they have the longest foraging period. They require food from February right the way through to October. And it is if we ensure that they have the food, everybody else is sustained, and that includes our birds, our wasps, our hornets, our hoverflies, various other insects that are out there like little pollen beetles and all the rest of it, all require pollen and nectar to be able to survive and feed off those little hosts that drain our plants like the aphid. Wasps rely on those to see their colonies through. So they have a role to play. We love the ladybird and we know what they do, but without all of these plants, a lot of these insects wouldn't survive. And the flowering plants are key to our survival, but also our wildlife survival.
I'm very glad somebody told you this programme's classy, by the way, and calling it dispersing and not pooing. That was very, very nice of you.
Like that?
I like that. Very nice. And then, of course, we go on to the food side of it, Ian, and we have to ask the question, what type of bees produce milk?
Produce milk?
Boobies.
Boobies.
It's been a long morning.
The kids will like that one later.
I don't get out much. I found it in a cracker in 1974. When we look at the elderflower, it doesn't seem like a raspberry or a strawberry or something we immediately think of as delicious. Sell this to me why the elderberry is sexy.
Oh, the elderberry. Now, the elderberry I haven't had a lot of luck with cooking, but with the elderflowers I have had a lot of success with. The elderberry, I did make a weird sauce called a Pontac sauce, which is an ancient recipe, and it was okay, I wouldn't bother going there. Elderflowers, I do every year, and they're fantastic. I mean, if you ever smelt an elderflower, or you smell the elderflower cordial, it's just got this gorgeous sort of perfume kind of scent to it, which just sort of smacks of summer, really. So you put some of that. Well, if you want to do more than just put it in, use the then put it in icing, put it in cake, and it tastes delicious.
Are we okay to go around and steal this? Because I can see a Daily Mail headline, we encourage people to go and make elderflower sauce, and then the next minute 3 people are arrested in Chichester and I end up on the front of the papers.
Trust me, I wouldn't want to get anyone in the Daily Mail for any reason whatsoever. I've been there and it's not nice.
No.
No, I mean, elderflower just grows absolutely everywhere. I mean, it's, I think even Bieber would say it's a weed. It grows in any scrubland. In fact, they have a problem where it doesn't grow in the land where they want it to. It just grows where it wants to grow, and so it's here, there, and everywhere.
It's a bit like Katie Price, really. You can't get rid of it this time of year, can you? Let's talk about you and the Great British Bake Off, because that was such a phenomenal time for you in your career. But it was amazing to me that people became obsessed with you and your lifestyle. There is a double standard, isn't there, at the minute, that women seem to want the jobs everywhere and they get them, and that's fine, and of course rightly so. But the minute a guy decides to go in a kitchen, he's a bit peculiar.
Yeah, and the whole sort of, I have to say, over-analysis of who we were and what we did was something that, they'd warned us there'd be a bit about, but certainly I was not ready for that at all. And it was like, I think it was an easy label to say that I was a house husband. It's like, okay, so I work from home, but then I thought, you know what, there are worse things to be called in the world. Let's just roll with it. I'll be a figurehead for house husbands in the UK. Here I am.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
And it's also interesting, I just spent 5 weeks in Vegas, and you look down the strip of the leading chefs and there isn't one female leading chef on that strip. I mean, cooking has always been associated with men as much as women, just in different places. Yeah,
it's funny, isn't it, the way, I mean, I've noticed that as well. I've been to one hotel in the UK which has a famous Michelin-starred restaurant, and it's kind of touted as, this chef is, she's a woman who's the head chef there, and that's sort of an unusual thing. And yet, I have to say, still in this modern days, it's mostly women who do the cooking in the house.
Do you think you had a positive effect on men such as myself masturbating more regularly and getting into it?
Yes, yeah, I think so. I hope so. I like to think I appealed to the engineer bakers of the country, those who fancy making a chocolate well. I'm sure there's one of them out there somewhere, but I think sort of you hear about the number of figures of the figures for the number of people who've taken on baking as a result of Bake Off, and it's extraordinary. It's had a huge effect on the country. And the show continues to grow. I'm quite partial to a sponge finger, Jane. What about you?
Oh, in a trifle, love.
Well, anywhere, to be honest with you, at my time of life. How do we protect the bees and keep them then? We found out how they help with the elderflower and all of that. What am I going to do to keep them in my garden? Is there anything on a human level, as small as I am, just with a normal house, with a normal garden? I'm not going to have a beehive as such because I haven't got time or energy. What can I do to help?
My policy is everybody can be a keeper of bees. We don't all have to be beekeepers. And the way that we do that is through planting. So it doesn't matter if you live in a flat with a small window, you can have a window box. If you are lucky enough to have a garden which is huge, you can put in a really long hedgerow which will provide lots of forage. You can have a small hedgerow, you can have an edible hedge, so it actually works for you, gooseberries, raspberries, blackberries, with a bit of wild elderflower will get in there as well. And you can have a small edible hedge. Instead of putting in a fence, why not put in a hedge? That will help to support the bees. We could all do something, whether it's growing wildflowers, whether it's buying a really fantastic foxglove, some asters, some astrantia majors for your beds. All of those plants will make a difference. And if you plant them in drift, so that's like 2 or 3 of the same plant, rather than just doing spot plants, you'll be providing much, much better forage for the bees. So do little numbers of plants together rather than just dotting them all over the place.
I'm very into my gardening. I've got low drangers, hydrangeas and Queen's Park drangers in my back garden. And I was saying to Mimo the other day, I wonder whether you need a trim bush to get the bees in or whether it can just be left to grow wild. Does it matter?
Doesn't matter. In fact, if you let it grow wild, you probably get more flowers than if you keep on trimming it.
I said that to her. She disagreed, but then again, she's of a different generation. Do you know what I'm saying? Strange, isn't it, really? Ian, back to the cooking with the elderflower then. What's the best thing we can do? Is there anything easy right now? Can we just stick some sugar in it and make a nice juice? What's the best thing to do?
Yeah. I mean, basically you just need some water, sugar, bit of lemon juice, lemon zest, and a little bit of citric acid, which something you can buy at the local chemist. And and then off you go. Yeah, otherwise, if you can't be bothered, then good old Beaver, they make a lovely elderflower cordial. And,
I've heard that.
Yeah, and they're picking right now, and they need 50 tons of flowers. I mean, God only knows how much a flower weighs, but 50 tons is a hell of a lot of flowers, so they need a lot of help. So if you look on their website, you can see where to go and go for a nice day's picking out in the countryside.
There you go. Lots of busy beavers this weekend. The Great British Bake Off's back this year. I'm sure you'll be in all the papers talking about it again. Are you glad you did it? Was it a thrill, or at this point do you think, I wish I'd have just stayed in my kitchen?
No, I'm really glad I did it. It was. I've always said that the best adventures are the ones you don't really plan. And geez, man, that was one weird adventure. It wasn't always easy, but no, I'm really glad I did it.
Well, I think you came across with great humility and great fun as well, and it's no wonder you did so well. You're certainly talented at that. And James Moseley as well. If people want to find out more about how to keep bees in the garden from the Beekeepers Association, where do they go?
www.friendsofthehoneybee.com.
Great. Thanks for talking both. Really enjoyed it.
Great, thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.